Hey, welcome to Phoenix Kitchen. Today we're making delicious homemade paneer cheese, aka Queso Fresco. Let me show you how easy it is so you can try it too. Alright, like we said, this is actually a very simple cheese to make. We have two basic ingredients. You have milk and then you have an acid. We're using lemon juice to help with the flavor. You could use just distilled white vinegar. What we're going to use that for is to break down the curds and whey. You'll need a strainer, some cheesecloth to wrap the cheese and let it hang. We're going to go ahead and grab a pot and we're going to put in our milk. Now I'm making 2 quarts, so a half gallon. Not going to make the entire gallon. I want about a quart per round of cheese. The recipe is very, very simple. For every 1 quart of milk, we're going to use an ounce of the lemon juice. And then depending on the level of saltiness you like, a quarter to half teaspoon of salt if you're going to add salt to your cheese. You can make it non-salted. I'm actually doing 2 quarts because I'm going to make 2 different cheeses. One I'm going to salt, and that'll be the only thing. It'll just be a plain crumbled cheese. The other batch, I'm going to leave out the salt. We're going to go ahead and form it into a little bit of a ball, and then I'm going to encrust the outside with herbs, and along with those herbs, we'll add the salt there. Now, we're going to put this milk over a medium heat in a nice thick pot so we don't scorch. You'll notice as I stir, I'm stirring very gently, not scraping the bottom, so if we have any milk that scorches, I don't want to get that into the cheese. We'll just leave it there and clean that pan later. We're going to check the temp as we go. What we're looking for here is a nice 180 to 190, and at that point, we'll add our acid. There we go. We're popping in right just under 190 degrees. We don't want this to be boiling. We want it just before boiling. You see the little bubbles starting to pop up on the outside. And I'm going to add in that lemon juice. You can see immediately a little change in color. And as I give it a light stir, we start to separate the curds and whey. Just like Little Miss Muppet, but we're only going to keep the curds for the cheese. Now we can store that whey and use it later in other things, or we can discard it if you have no use for it. You can see here it immediately starts to curdle, and we're going to just lightly stir, and we're going to allow this to simmer for a few minutes and let that break down. We're going to turn the heat off. We don't want to get it any hotter. We simply want to allow time for those curds to form. If after a few minutes you're not getting the formation of curds, you can always add a little more lemon juice, just a little at a time, and watch for that to break down. All right, I'm going to give it a quick check to see if we're breaking down the way we should be. Pull it up in a ladle, and as you let it drop, you can see all the little cheese curds and that the whey is a separate liquid, just kind of sitting there in suspension. So we are ready to run this through our cheesecloth. So we'll get that set up. Give this just a few minutes to cool down just a little bit so that we can handle it. And then we're going to ladle it through that cheesecloth and let it separate that whey from the curds. All right, so we've got our cheesecloth set up over the strainer, over a bowl to catch the whey as it comes through. I'm going to go ahead and ladle in the first batch simply because the pot is hot and it's heavy and I don't want sloshing hot liquid everywhere. We're just going to go ahead and ladle it in. We'll let it set for a few moments. Now, if you'll notice the difference between here and when we do the second batch, I am using my cheesecloth simply doubled over So it's going to allow a little more curd to come through as I squeeze out the excess whey. What this does for me is it's going to keep it in crumble form, because some of it's going to squeeze through, and when I open it up, I'm just going to peel it all out and it'll be crumbled like feta. And I want that for this particular batch. My second batch, I'm going to actually fold over the cheesecloth and quadruple it so that the whey doesn't squeeze out. And as I put that into the fridge later, it will form into a cheese ball that will be sliceable. So it is a crumbled cheese, but you can form it. You see here, I've got about half of my my fill for this one, and I went ahead and added in the salt. Going to give that a little stir, and I'll put in just a little bit more to top this off, and we'll be ready to go ahead and squeeze the whey out of this particular batch, and then we'll get our second batch done. We're going to hang these for about 30 minutes with a plate underneath to catch any excess drippings. Once they've dripped and all of the whey has come out, then we'll go ahead and put them into the fridge for about an hour. Let it cool down and let the cheese form up if you're making a form out of it. And then we'll open them up and give them a taste. All right, now one thing to keep in mind, we've got this off of the heat. It's been off the heat for a little while, but remember, we were up around 190 degrees. It's still hot. You can still see steam coming off of it. So I am going to go ahead and use my gloves to make sure that I don't scorch my hands as we do this. And we're simply going to gather up the excess cheesecloth around the top, and we're going to just twist that tighter and tighter as we go, giving that little squeeze. And you can see the whey coming out. Now, you'll see here, if you look really closely, like I mentioned, this first one, I did not make the cheesecloth quite as dense because I want to force through and make crumbles. And you can see little pieces of the whey start to push through. And that's going to be nice. It's going to be inside those layers, and I'll be able to pull them apart, and it'll make a nice crumbled cheese. I'm just going to keep twisting this until the large excess amount of the whey is out. And then, as I said, we'll hang these for about 30 minutes and let the last few drops drip out on their own. And then we'll go into the fridge and let it cool down and form up. All right, and for the second batch, you can see I've made the cheesecloth a lot thicker by folding it over a couple of extra times. And we're going to go ahead, and at this point, we have a low enough amount of liquid remaining in the pot that it'll be a nice easy pour. We're not going to overflow or slosh anywhere, so rather than taking the time to use the ladle, we'll just slowly pour this in. And you can see as it runs over the side there, the separation between the curds and the whey, which is absolutely beautiful. And we'll let that set for a few moments. Let the whey pass through the cheesecloth, and then we'll work this the exact same way we did the first one. We'll gather up, we'll twist, we'll squeeze, and then we'll get these ready to hang. All right, so for hanging this cheese, you don't have to have a fancy place. It's only going to be there for about 20 to 30 minutes. Anywhere you could have something set up in your kitchen and let it hang over a plate or a bowl to drip in. Once all of the liquid has stopped dripping, we're going to put it in the fridge for about an hour to let it form up. At this point, it's ready to serve or make any additions. For me, the one batch, the second one that I made that was unsalted and allowed to form, I grabbed some thyme and rosemary out of the garden, cracked a little black pepper, a little bit of kosher salt, and just rolled that cheese in it to make an herb encrusted cheese. Serving this on some toast with some nice fig spread or your favorite jam. Crumble it up, and just absolutely delicious. Would be perfect for guests around the holidays. Put it on a charcuterie with toast or crackers. Absolutely amazing. We're giving away a 5-piece cast iron lodge cookware set when we hit 1,000 subscribers. All you have to do is like a video and subscribe to the channel to be entered in the giveaway.